Talk about SWEAC. Many people don't even know where to go when something goes wrong at work. So, in simple terms, what does Sudbury Workers Education and Advocacy Center SWEAC actually do, and when should someone reach out?
What we do is we help workers. Doesn't get any more simple than that. Our services are free, our services are confidential, so people should reach out when they've got questions about what's happening in the workplace. Hey, I think I should be getting overtime, but my boss says I don't deserve it. How do I figure this out? Who do I call to find out the answer? You call us, the Sudbury Workers Center. We can help you out.
What are the most common scams you are seeing right now? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think also I want to separate this into two different kinds of job scams too, right? So there's the job scam that you get when you're not here, that entices you to come to Canada.
All right, good evening, and welcome to the brand new edition of Beyond the Borders with Arjun Season 2 on CKLU 96.7 FM, streaming live at cklu.ca on the Radio Player Canada app and on different social media platforms through Tune Into Arjun. This season, as I mentioned in my earlier shows, we are trying our best to make this show more informative, more impactful, more insightful, and more dedicated to you. On today's conversation is one that affects almost everyone listening right now: workers, newcomers, students, families, anyone trying to build a life here in Canada. Whether you are working your first job, juggling multiple shifts, multiple hours, supporting a family, or trying to build a life in a new country, your rights at work matter. And the reality is, many people don't fully know those rights. Some are underpaid, some are treated unfairly, and many stay silent because they are not sure what they can do, or they are simply afraid. So today we are having a real, honest conversation. I should say serious conversation about what's actually happening in workplaces across our community, and more importantly, what you can do about it. So we are, joined by someone who has spent years and years standing up for workers and helping people understand their rights. He's none other than Mr. Scott Florence. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Florence is the Executive Director of the Sudbury Workers Education and Advocacy Center. He also works with the Sudbury Community Legal Clinic on the Sexual Harassment in the Workplace project. He is a licensed paralegal with over 25 years of experience in the non-profit and social justice sector, focusing on employment law, labor law, and human rights. All right. So we are diving into real talk about rights at work, what's fair, what's not, and what you can do about it. And we're going to talk about protections and how to speak up when things go wrong. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are, listening to Beyond the Borders with Arjun on CKLU 96.7. You stay tuned and stick around. We're going to be right back. All right, welcome back. You are still tuned into CKLU 96.7 FM, and this is none other than Beyond the Borders And yes, today I have none other than, I already told you, it's truly an honor to have Mr. Scott Florence on Beyond the Borders. He is the frontline hero for all the workers here in Canada. Scott, welcome to the show and thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for that very kind introduction. I don't think I get to be a hero. I don't wear a cape. Uh, I can't possibly do the 3-point landing when I fall down, but we do what we can to try and help people out.
Thank you so much. Scott, looking at your journey, I went through your socials. I know you told me that you are not so much into social media these days. I went through your socials and looking at your journey, you spent over 2 decades in theater, if I'm not wrong, as a performer, as a teacher, and artistic leader before moving into workers' rights and legal advocacy with the Sudbury Workers' Education and Advocacy Center, SWEAC. That's not a typical path. I'm really, curious. What was the turning point where, storytelling and community work shifted into advocating for the workers' rights? And do you feel that your background in theater still shapes how you connect with and support workers today at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So the law is about storytelling, right? So the law, just like theater, just like anything here on the radio, it's all about storytelling. It's about getting your perspective out there into the world, sharing your perspective, making sure that other people hear your voice and understand your voice, understand your perspective, so that we can all learn and grow and become more than what we are. And so, yeah, everybody when they get into theater, when they get into performing, sure, it's about, hey, isn't this so much fun? But also, there's a desire to tell stories. There's a desire to, in some way, shape or form, change the world. Make things better. So that was always part of what I was doing when I was doing theater. Part of the drive for all of that, and performing doesn't always pay all of the bills, so I also did a lot of administrative work in theater as well, which morphed naturally into sort of nonprofit management, which is sort of what brought me here to Sudbury. And throughout my career, even as a performer, was always looking to be improving things for artists, right? So a big believer in making sure that artists get paid for their work, that they get paid fairly for the work that they do, that they're treated fairly in all of the places that they work. So I was the regional representative for the Eastern region of Canadian Actors Equity Association for a few years. With the theater company that I was with, the Company of Fools in Ottawa, we worked very hard to be a professional theater company, to be paying professional minimums, not just to the performers, but to everyone that was involved in the theatrical production. And so that desire to ensure that workplaces are fair, that people are treated correctly and decently has always been a part of my life. It's just now it's the major focus of my life rather than the thing that I make sure happens, with my focus being something else.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's before we get into laws and rights, let's start with what you are seeing every day from your experience here in Sudbury and Northern Ontario. What is the real situations from for workers right now? You have the experience in theater and here workers and everything. What's the situations right now?
Yeah, so obviously some of my experience is skewed because nobody comes to see me unless they're having a problem, right? And so nobody's coming to me and saying, "Oh my God, I need to file a claim with the Minister of Labor. My boss is just too damn nice." So nobody says that. So obviously there are good employers out there. There are employers and bosses that treat people right, that do the right thing. But sadly, there are a lot of bosses that don't care about the workers or don't understand that treating workers poorly results in poor outcomes in the workplace, right?
Mhm.
And there's actually lots of great data out there that shows that employers who strive to be decent work employers, who strive to pay people appropriately and well, who provide their workers with paid sick days and more breaks than they might be entitled to under the minimums of the Employment Standards Act. Um, you know, treat their workers with respect and dignity, give them some agency in the workplace. That results in a benefit for employers, right? So workers are more productive in a workplace. If you like your boss and if you like the place that you're working, you're going to work a little bit harder than if you don't like your boss and he's going to piss you off all the time. You're going to drag your heels a little bit, right?
True.
Doesn't matter what kind of job you're doing, whether it's a physical job, whether it's a interpersonal job, whether it's on a computer. If you love your work and you love the people that you're working with, you're going to work a little bit harder and you're going to be more productive. When you're treated well at work as well, you have less of a desire to take time off. You know that if you're sick, you're going to be able to take the time off that you need. And so therefore you take it off and then you're able to recover and get back to work faster, right? And because you know that you're not going to be penalized or punished for taking time off, it makes it easier when you do need a little bit of time off to not have to worry about that and to have the stress of that. And so we see with decent work employers as well that absenteeism decreases in the workplace. Workers want to be there. They know that they got paid sick days. They're not going to lose any money if they are at work or not at work. And so they only take the time off that they actually need to recover, and they're able to recover quicker because they take the time off at the beginning of the sickness rather than when it gets so bad that it's going to take weeks and weeks and weeks for them to recover.
That's right. So, as per you, are things getting worse or just more visible?
I mean, we've certainly seen an increase in people coming to us wanting our help, wanting to know more about how they can push back against their bosses who are treating them poorly or taking advantage of them or not following the law. And so we're definitely seeing more and more people that are coming out to us. And as we all know, the pandemic changed a lot of things for a lot of people, right? And especially immediately after the pandemic, in low wage jobs, in precarious, unstable jobs, suddenly workers had the power, right? Because it was still hard to find people to do those jobs. And bosses had to work a little harder to try and find workers and so they had to treat them better. And workers were like, you know what, why am I putting up with this? I went back to school during the pandemic. I got my skills a little bit better. I don't have to be working this crappy job anymore. Or I can find a job online, right?
Yeah.
Because so much work moved online. We're now seeing sort of the pendulum swing back again, where jobs are a little harder to find again, and so people are a little bit more worried about losing their jobs. But nonetheless, that desire to be treated correctly and better after the pandemic, I think, has stayed with a lot of people. And also a lot of people have realized, through that process, and as we've seen in the last little while as well with our weather event, that sometimes your boss just turns out to be a complete jerk, right? Like it's like they ignore the totality of the situation around you. They want to
Right.
ignore the reality of the world, and they're just like, what the hell are you doing? Get into work.
Yeah. Right.
And workers are like, I don't want to be treated like that.
Right.
They want to be treated better. They want to be treated like a human being in the workplace. And so we are seeing more people that are coming to us. And I think there has been a real shift culturally over the last little while that it's no longer okay to try and grind your way to the top. We know that doesn't work. Hustle culture is a lie. And workers are not going to put up with that kind of crap as much anymore.
All right, we're going to talk about the worst weather situations, and if you're not physically able to reach in your workplace, what would be the consequences and what you can do. We're going to talk about that. Let's talk about SWEAC. Many people don't even know where to go when something goes wrong at work. So, in simple terms, what does Sudbury Workers Education and Advocacy Center SWEAC actually do, And when should someone reach out?
Yeah. What we do is we help workers. Doesn't get any more simple than that. Our services are free, our services are confidential. So people should reach out when they've got questions about what's happening in the workplace. Hey, I think I should be getting overtime, but my boss says I'm not, I don't deserve it. How do I figure this out? Who do I call to find out the answer? You call us, the Sudbury Workers Center. We can help you out. If you are not getting paid properly, if you're, receiving harassment or abuse from either a boss or a coworker, they're making fun of you in the workplace, or they're saying racial comments that you don't appreciate. You've asked them to stop, but they're like, I'm just joking, dude, get over yourself, or whatever. Give us a call. We can help you understand how you can either try and resolve things directly with your coworkers or with your boss. If you can't resolve things directly with your coworker or your boss, we can help you to understand the options that you have in terms of maybe filing a claim with the Ministry of Labor or the Ontario Labour Relations Board or the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario or any other legal process that might be available to you. And we can help support you to do that as well. So it's important to know that although I am a licensed paralegal at the Sudbury Workers Center, we don't provide legal advice,
Okay.
legal opinion, or legal representation. What we do is we make sure that you know how you can represent yourself, and we help you to do that because it's hard, right? Even if it's simple, even if the forms are simple, even if it doesn't take a lot of effort, it feels hard, right? Because there's like, oh my God, I'm putting in a claim against my boss. What is going to be the outcome from this? And what if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing with the ministry? And like, sure, my boss did one bad thing, a really big bad thing, but I kind of did a bad thing as well. Like, is that going to be the end of my claim? We help people understand the best way to do it. We help them to understand how to file the forms, how to access the forms, and to make sure that their story is going to be seen in the best way possible by whoever is adjudicating the claim, to help them get the justice that they deserve.
Absolutely, but the thing is, we often assume help is available, but not everyone asks for it. Are workers actually reaching out to SWEAC, or or fear and lack of awareness still big barriers?
Yeah, I mean, so fear and ignorance are still big barriers for a lot of people. So number one, if you're not even aware that you have rights in the workplace, then you're not going to reach out and you're not going to call, right?
Absolutely,
You're,
yeah.
you're just going to think, oh, this is just terrible. This is how these are. This boss is terrible, but there's nothing I can do about it. My only recourse is the only thing I can do is try and find a new job, right? But then many people are scared. They're scared for a lot of different reasons, right? They're scared about just losing their job and not being able to find another one, right? So one of the first things that we tell people in that particular situation is you've got up to 2 years with the Minister of Labour to file a claim. You've got up to 1 year with the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario to file your claim. So you don't need to file your claim today,
Okay.
right? Let's connect you with an employment services agency. Let's get you a new job. And then once you've settled down in your new job, things are going okay, now we can file the claim, right? And until you get your new job, hey, here's what we need to do to help make our claim be successful. We want to try and document all of the things that are wrong here in this job, so that when we do file the claim, we've got the paper trail that's going to make it all be that much more easy to demonstrate and prove that our claim is true, right? So that's one level of fear, is just, I can't lose my job.
And is immigration status a major factor? What do you think?
That is another big level of fear for
Yeah.
many, many people, right?
Right.
So if you're here as a newcomer to Canada and you do not yet have your permanent residency, but you're hoping to achieve permanent residency, you may be worried that if you file a claim, this is somehow going to negatively impact your ability to either extend your current status, your current working visa, or affect your claim for permanent residency. And the great news is that there is no connection between IRCC, which processes permanent residency, and the Ministry of Labor. They're different levels of government. One is federal, one is provincial, and they don't have any direct connection. You are allowed as a newcomer, whether you're an international student, whether you're here as a refugee or an asylum seeker, whether you're here under one of the many forms of work permits that allows you to work, you are allowed to file a claim with the Ministry of Labor with no fear of that affecting your status. And I want to say, even if you're here as an undocumented worker, you have rights and you are allowed to file your claim with the Ministry of Labor.
All right.
And the Ministry of Labor, even if you're undocumented, they are not going to report you to IRCC. They're not going to report you to Canada Border Services. So in that sense, you don't have to worry about the government, this branch of the government, telling on you on another branch of the government. However, there are still risks if you're an undocumented person
Right.
in filing a claim because the ministry isn't going to report you, but that doesn't mean that somebody else, including your boss, who's now pissed off that you're filing a claim, might report you, right? So there is a danger if you're an undocumented worker. However, we have assisted undocumented workers to file claims, and those claims have been successful. And so it's not an impossible thing, right? So the level of fear depends on, how secure you feel in your status, and it's real. It's very real, but I want to assure everybody that is here with some kind of work permit, it does not affect your work permit. It will not affect your ability
Status.
to renew the work permit. It will not affect your permanent residence application. None of that will matter. You can file a claim. You are allowed to work and to access justice here while you're working.
That's amazing. I'm sure those who are listening to us right now, that misconception is clear, and now they can step forward and reach to the right place. And Scott, right now in Ontario, the government has set the minimum wage at around 17.60 per hour, with small annual increases tied to inflation. At the same time, organizations like SWEAC, are actively pushing for a $20 minimum wage, along with the idea of a true, living wage and status for all. So, looking at the current situations where wages are increasing slowly, but on the other hand, the cost of living is rising much faster. And if you see the rate of gas is touching the sky, how far are we from that $20 goal? And realistically, how is the moment progressing right now for workers in places like Sudbury and in northeastern Ontario?
Yeah, so I think you're touching on the heart of the big problem in our society, right?
Right.
Is that some of us are very, very rich, and many of us are struggling paycheck to paycheck to make ends meet. We know that here in Sudbury in northeastern Ontario, the living wage is $21 and I think it's 30 cents.
Okay.
Just a little over $21. And so what is the living wage? The living wage is a calculation done by the Ontario Living Wage Network that says, hey, if you're a family of 4, 2 wage earners, 2 children, or if you're a family of a single parent with 2 children, or whatever it is, here's how much money you're going to need to earn in your household every hour in order to cover your rent, pay all your utilities, make sure you've got food for your entire family to eat, make sure you've got clothes, because you can't go places naked. You've got to get around the city, right? So
Right.
you need to be able to transport yourself around the city. Transportation costs are included in that. All work and no play just makes people miserable. So there's a small vacation that's calculated in that. So that's what the living wage is, right? Now, obviously, that's an imperfect number. It's based on data sets. It's any individual might find that that's more or less than what they actually need. But that's what, if you're not earning $21.30 an hour, you're essentially living at poverty levels here in Northern Ontario, right? And so our minimum wage at $17.60 an hour is clearly completely inadequate to meet that. It's almost $4 less than what it takes to live here in Northern Ontario, which means that people who are low-waged workers need to work more than one job in order to make ends meet, which puts a great strain on them physically, emotionally, and still you find yourself working paycheck to paycheck, right? So we definitely need higher minimum wages. Do we have the political will? There's a lot of resistance against it. And even from regular people, there's a lot of resistance, right? They'll say, oh, you just raised the wages and the price of everything else goes up. You mentioned that gas just went up, right? It's skyrocketing. Is that because our wages went up?
Yeah. No.
No,
No.
right? I didn't get a raise. Did
No
you get
way.
a raise?
No.
No, none of us got raises, right?
Yeah.
None of us got raises recently, and yet the price of gas went up. The costs of rental units continue to rise. Did I get a raise recently? Did you get a raise recently? Is it tied to our wages? It's not tied to our wages, right? So the cost of living is not directly tied to wages. All right? It's tied to a whole lot of other things that are unrelated to wages. It's tied to the prices of commodities everywhere. It's wars, gas, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it's rich corporations that drive up the cost of living, right? So the price of oil is going up. There are still tons of reserves. Nobody's actually hurting for oil at this time, right? And yet the price of gas has gone up because the companies see that there's an opportunity to raise these prices here, right? The cost of our groceries continues to go up. We know that when the pandemic hit and we had the supply chain issues, the price of groceries went up. And the grocery store owners at that time, they were all like, listen, don't worry, man, don't worry. We're just raising the prices to match the increases that we're seeing, right? Like you understand, we can't take a loss. We've got to pass those additional costs that we have on to you. But that was a lie, right? And we know it was a lie because in that period that they were assuring us that they were only charging us the extra that it was costing them to get the food onto the shelves, their profits increased by 200%. Right? So your profits don't increase by 200% if you're only charging the exact amount of extra that it's costing you, right? You're charging 200% because it's making your pocketbooks fat, right? So this is the real issue, right? These are always the people that we're fighting against. We're not fighting against newcomers to Canada. It's not newcomers that are driving up the prices of housing. It's rich and greedy landlords that are driving up the price of housing, right?
Yeah.
It's not newcomers or immigrants that are making food costs and other things go up. It's the rich corporations that are driving these costs up, right? And so as long as we keep getting distracted and fighting amongst ourselves and blaming ourselves for this, we're not going to get any farther ahead. The other really important thing about the $20 minimum wage is raising wages actually puts money in the economy. It doesn't take it out, okay? In Ontario, we had a huge wage leap several years ago, almost a decade ago now. We went from 11 something to $14 an hour, right? And big business was like, oh my God, this is going to be the end of Ontario. This is going to be the end. You know, Ontario's gross domestic product is going to like tank. Unemployment is going to skyrocket. Like businesses are just going to be closing left, right, and center. This is going to be the end of the economy in Ontario. Like, how could you do this, government? You know, like you've destroyed business. And then the opposite is actually what happened. Right? Instead of the GDP going down, it went up. Instead of unemployment going up, it went down. Why? Because when people had more money in their pockets, they spent it. It's stimulus spending, right? It's stimulus spending, exactly what the government does whenever there's some kind of economic crisis. They're like, hey, let's shovel some more money out the door, right? Let's get more businesses spending. If times are bad for people, let's put money out there so that people spend, they feel good about it, and that will stimulate the economy, and then we'll get that money back, right? We'll get that money back. And it's the same with the minimum wage. If we raise the minimum wage, it's not going to collapse the economy. It's actually going to enhance the economy.
That's right. All right, let's move on to job scams. Job scams are becoming very common, and especially targeting newcomers and international students. It's happening all the time, you know. So, what are the most common scams you are seeing right now? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think also I want to separate this into two different kinds of job
Okay.
scams too, right? So there's the job scam that you get when you're not here,
Mm.
that entices you to come to Canada, right?
Right,
Perhaps
right.
as an international student, perhaps somebody's told you, listen, give me this money, I'm going to get you into this college program. You're going to have a job immediately waiting for you after that, and PR is going to follow immediately, right?
Mm.
And so people, they're like, that is amazing. I want that. Yes. And so they give the recruiter overseas money. They arrive here in the school. Hopefully, that the school is actually real and a proper program, because some people get scammed out of that as well.
Mm.
But then most people arrive and they discover, oh, those promises of that job that was waiting for me right after graduation, that doesn't exist,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And that immediate path to PR, that doesn't exist, right? So that's one problem, the recruitment problem, the enticement problem for people to come here, right? And that sometimes also happens with closed work permits and other forms that get people here, where you're actively recruited. There's these great jobs. You're going to be really, really great. You're going to have all this work. And then you arrive here and you don't realize that in your contract, there was this fine print that said, actually, as long as I've got the work to pay you, sure, I'm giving you permanent work. But, it turns out I don't actually have full-time work for you. So I'll be laying you off constantly while you're here, right?
Right.
So those are all very problematic
Mm.
as well. And but here, if you're already here, the first thing to say is always, with any offer, if it sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true,
Mm.
right?
Right.
The second thing is people are using online tools to recruit people, to offer them jobs, to make it seem very, very real. And then it turns out not to be real at all, right?
Mhm.
And so if the work is all online, right, and there's no storefront that you can go to, there's nothing that you can actually visit, the chances of it being a scam are a little bit higher. I'm not saying that all online work is a scam. Obviously, there's lots of great online work out there, but what does the company do? Do they actually have a tangible project beyond the web page, which looks really, really nice, right? Uh, One of the big things that they do is they say, listen, I'm sending you a check, I'm sending you some money, right? And what I need you to do is to buy all of this stuff through the online store here that I've sent you, so that you can get the computer that you're going to need to use, that you're going to get the chair that you're going to need to use, that you're going to get the phone and the headset or the whatever it is, right? And so this check arrives in the mail and you think, great, and you buy all of that stuff online, or perhaps it's an e-transfer and it goes into your bank account and you think, great, and then you spend the money online and then that money gets sucked right back out of your bank account, right?
Right. Right.
Or the check doesn't clear. But when you try and get your money back from the company, oh, the bank is not going to help you there. They're like, oh, I'm sorry that the money got taken back. That's totally legal. But me trying to get that money back from that store that you spent on, oh, I can't do that, right? So the banks will not help you, not without a lot of pushing and kicking and screaming. And so that is where we're seeing a lot of the scams and a lot of the issues, is those online recruitments that make it just seem really, really attractive and have a great website, trick you into thinking that looks legit, even send you a little bit of money. But the scam is they want you to be sending something to them,
All
right?
right. If someone, listening right now and realizes they have already been scammed or exploited, what should they do immediately?
Yeah, I mean, give us a call and we will chat with you. And you can also report it to the police. It is fraud. These things are very, very difficult, especially if they are online scams. They're very, very difficult to get any justice for them. And unfortunately, our bank do not always support people with these issues. They sort of tend to have the attitude of, well, you should have known better, and therefore it's your own fault, and so we're not going to do anything about it, which is very disappointing. So the best thing to do, if you have done that, give us a call and report it to the police as well. The other thing to do is, if you're thinking, oh my God, I'm listening to this, what if this is a scam? do a whole lot more research online. Who else is this company working with? What other footprint do they have besides that web page, right? Like, go beyond just the initial surface, look deeper, try and find them connected in as many ways as possible, and make sure that it's legitimate.
That's right. So for now, I'm gonna play one of your favorite songs. So you want to dedicate to anybody, and we're gonna continue our conversations. And next, we're gonna talk about the Employment Standard Act (ESA) in a while. For now, whom you want to dedicate this song?
I'm going to dedicate it to all of my team at the Sudbury Workers Education and Advocacy Center. We've got a great crew that's working there and some new workers coming in. So thank you, everyone.
Here we go. You are still tuned into CKLU 96.7 FM, and we are still in conversation with none other than Mr. Scott Florence, Executive Director at Sudbury Workers Education and Advocacy Center, SWEAC. Welcome back one more time.
Thank you.
And I do have a couple more questions, and I'm trying my best, and I'm making sure we don't miss the remaining questions as well. So we're going to be really quick, and we're going to cover these questions as well. A lot of workers hear about laws, but don't really understand what applies to them. In simple terms, who is protected under the Employment Standards Act and who might not be?
Yeah, so in general, everybody that is working in the workplace is protected by the Employment Standards Act. However, there are some exceptions and some exemptions to different elements of the Act. So, for example, if you are a co-op placement student that is working through your program at Cambridge College or Laurentian University, then some of the elements of the Act don't apply to you. The Occupational Health and Safety Act still does, so you're protected from a health and safety point of view, but in terms of wages and things like that, you're exempt from all of that. If you're working in different fields like construction or healthcare, landscape, building management, there might be some differences in some of the rules that cover you or even some exemptions from them. And if you're working in agriculture, sadly, you're exempted from almost everything under the Employment Standards Act. And so, it's no surprise really that we rely on short-term foreign migrant workers to fulfill our agricultural work because nobody else would agree to do it.
Let's make this practical. If an employer is not paying full wages, cutting hours unfairly, or making illegal deduction, what can a worker actually do step by step?
Yeah, so the first thing is always you try and raise the issue with your employer and see if they will resolve the issue. Perhaps there was a genuine misunderstanding on the part of the employer. You picked up 2 extra shifts, they weren't on your schedule, they just paid you for what your schedule was, forgetting that you'd actually picked up some extra shifts, right? So the first thing you should try and do is always try and resolve it with your employer. If that doesn't work, then your next step is to file a claim with the Ministry of Labor. Okay. It's free to file a claim with the Ministry of Labor. Anybody can file the claim. You don't need to hire a lawyer or a paralegal. You don't need to get legal advice. You can file the claim yourself. It's fairly simple and easy to do. It's an online process. You can also print forms and mail it in. It's also something that we can help people with. And again, our services are free and confidential.
Beautiful. All right, let's talk about the migrant workers' reality. Different newcomers, PRs, international students, temporary foreign workers, refugees, they have very different experience. Who do you see as the most vulnerable in the workplace and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think all newcomers are vulnerable because we treat all newcomers differently than we do Canadian citizens or people with permanent residency, right? So if you're here with a work permit, even if it's an open work permit, there may still be restrictions on it. The more restrictions you have, the more vulnerable you might be considered to be. But again, you might have a great employer, and so you're less vulnerable in that sense. But certainly, anybody that's here on a closed work permit, where you're only allowed to work with a single employer, faces greater pressure to be concerned about the loss of their job and therefore greater pressure to perhaps accept unsafe working conditions or to accept abuse or harassment in the workplace, because if they lose that job, then they no longer have the right to be here in Canada, right? And so that puts them at particular risk. But because international students have a restriction on the number of hours that they can work, that puts them in a precarious position where their status could be revoked for what might end up being a genuine mistake or misunderstanding on their part, right?
Right.
Because we know that sometimes, students have been asked by their bosses to work an extra shift because, one or two people didn't show up and, things are really bad. And so the worker's like, So they accept the extra shift, not realizing that it's going to put them over their 20 hours. And then somebody reports them. And we know that our immigration system is not always kind or fair or taking into consideration these kinds of things. And so that student now finds themselves having done the right thing in the moment to assist their boss in a difficult situation, now being told, well, you can't stay in Canada anymore, right? And that's wrong. That's just wrong. Our system is unfair. We don't put any limits on the amount of hours that Canadian students or permanent resident students get to work. Why are we putting them on international students? It is, on the face of it, unfair. And the same with refugee and asylum seekers. They're unable to access health care unless they pay out of pocket. International students are also, restricted in how they access health care. And one of the great justifications that people say is like, well, but of course, these newcomers, they haven't paid into the system. And so why should they be able to access it? Except that's false, because everybody that works pays income tax. Everybody that buys something in Canada pays HST or GST. All of us contribute to the taxes, right? And we don't make a distinction with a newborn that's born in here. When my child was born, it wasn't like, oh, I'm sorry, they're going to have to wait until they wake and pay some taxes before we'll allow them to have access to the health care, because, they haven't paid into the service yet. They're just a baby.
That's a bitter truth, yeah.
Right? So it's unfair that we treat people differently. And because of that, I think ultimately our immigration system is an unfair system. And the only real solution is status for all. On arrival, everyone should be given the equivalency of permanent residency so that they're able to move freely wherever they need to move, between provinces, between cities, that if they've got a bad employer, they can find a new employer, that they're not restricted in any hours, and they're able to access all of our social services in the same way that anybody else can.
That's right. Almost at the end, I already mentioned we wanted to, cover almost the remaining questions as well. So, recently, Sudbury experienced extreme weather and something many compared to the historic 1959 snow Macedon. Roads shut down, workplace closed, and people simply couldn't, travel. In a situation like this, can an employer legally fire or penalize someone for not showing up?
Yeah, it's a complicated question. So should they? No, they shouldn't. And they shouldn't be threatening people with their jobs either. But legally in Ontario, an employer has control over their workplace. If they ask you to do a shift, you are supposed to accept that shift. If you don't, it can be considered sort of abandoning your shift and a form of essentially quitting. But there might be, beyond the Employment Standards Act, there might be other things that are protecting you, right? So just as we were, just before the show, I mentioned, I've just got this email from my school, the buses are canceled, right?
Right.
So you might have a family status accommodation need, right? Hey, I can't get my kid to school. I can't, if the buses aren't running, I don't have a car, I can't take them to the school, we can't walk there, it's too far, plus the sidewalks aren't plowed, it would be too dangerous. I need to stay home, right? And so that should be a protected leave that your boss shouldn't terminate you for. As well, you might have mobility issues as well, right? That might prevent you from being able to get to the workplace. And so there might be disability protection that you can call on for that. although the city of Greater Sudbury did declare this a weather emergency, it doesn't meet the standard for uh, um, emergency leave under the Emergency Act, which is unfortunate because that requires the premier to announce that to protect workers. So should workers be protected in these kinds of situations? Absolutely. And I don't believe that anybody that gets fired, I would encourage them to file a claim. I think that given the totality of the circumstances, that they would likely
I was
be.
about to come to that question. If someone is threatened or even fired during this emergency like that, they should file.
I would absolutely file a claim. I would allege wrongful dismissal. Given the totality of the circumstances, if your street wasn't plowed, right?
Right.
You're living in an apartment building. Your street hasn't been plowed. Your apartment complex hasn't been plowed. The buses aren't running. You're, several blocks from the biggest main road, and the buses aren't running either. You can't actually get to work, and your boss needs to understand that, right? Now, we know that there have been a lot of challenges for a lot of workplaces where they absolutely 100% need people to be in that workplace.
Yeah.
Hospitals, first responders, right? Of all descriptions, security guards in some cases, right? And we also know that in many of those workplaces, they have provided additional incentives for workers. They have gone the extra mile to try and make it easier for workers to get to those workplaces. But also we know that in some cases, workers have just had to put in extra hours. They've simply had to work longer. They haven't been able to get back home, and they've had to work additional shifts, 24 hours, maybe even longer, right? Or even just sleep in the workplace because they can't get home. So, I don't envy any employer that has to run a 24-hour operation, especially one related to healthcare or first responders or any of those kinds of things. Those are always very, very difficult. But for everybody else, I think you need to look at the totality of the situation. And if your employees can't get into work, offer them some work to do remotely. If you can't do that, then it's unpaid time off, right? You don't have to pay them if they can't get to work, but you also shouldn't be threatening them. And again, being threatened by your boss is contrary to the Occupational Health and Safety Code. It constitutes harassment in the workplace. And, if your boss is constantly threatening you, you can file a claim on that basis as well.
Absolutely. So almost at the end, we recently observed the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is globally recognized. It reminds us that discrimination, it still exists in workplaces. In your experience, how does racial discrimination show up in everyday work environments?
Yeah, I mean, it shows up in so many different ways, and obviously, I want to acknowledge that as a cisgendered sort of white male, I rarely experience discrimination. It's not a thing that I live with on a regular basis, and so I have no real personal experience to sort of relate around this. But certainly, what I hear and what we hear at the Sudbury Workers Center is ongoing what are often called microaggressions, just those small snide little comments that somebody makes. A big one is people sort of imitating your accent, right? And they might not even wanting to be mean about it, right? Like they might just be trying to be friendly, but if it's irritating you, if it's problematic, and one thing I've learned is that sometimes when somebody tries to imitate your accent, they end up sounding to you like they're making you sound really stupid, right? And so it's sort of like, it doesn't come off as like, an intelligent person speaking with your vocal cadence. It comes off like somebody that's uneducated or an idiot. And so it also, has that additional level for many people of like, you're mocking me and making me sound like I'm dumb, right? And making me sound like I'm stupid. There are also overt acts of discrimination that people absolutely experience in the workplace, which are, and all of it is illegal, right? You do not have to put up with racism, harassment, discrimination in the workplace. You're protected first under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which says that, no violence in the workplace, including verbal violence, is permitted. And then secondly, by the Human Rights Code of Ontario, which prohibits anybody from being treated differently on the basis of race, ethnicity, country of origin, color, 17 different protected grounds. But it is real. It does happen. And it makes workplaces really, really difficult for people.
So, what is the safest first step for someone facing discrimination based on race, color, country, accent, or background? What do you want to say? The first step they can take.
I mean, the first thing that you always want to try and do is let people know that what they're saying isn't acceptable, right? We can't be silent about these things. Speaking up can feel really, really hard, especially if you're the only minority in the workplace. It can feel very, very hard. It can feel very, very dangerous. But speaking up is always important. And sometimes with conversation comes some change, right? Sometimes people just need to hear it. But if you've tried to raise it and nothing is changing, what's important is that you document it. You take notes about it. You get confirmation from other people. Did you hear them say that? Send a text message to somebody. Did you just hear that person, say that thing? Get some documented proof that this is actually happening to you in the workplace, so that when you make a claim, when you finally do decide to either report it to management or to human resources, or file a claim with the Human Rights Tribunal or the Ministry of Labor, that you're going to have documentation that's going to support that what happened to you really happened to you.
Absolutely. Document everything. And with that, we come to as an end. It's already 8. Thank you so much for joining in today. And we just want to take a moment to appreciate you, not just for joining us, but for the work you have been doing for workers in our community. At Beyond the Borders, we believe in recognizing people who are creating real impact. A small, as a small gesture of appreciations from our team in collaborations with our season 2 creative partner, Isan's Art, we have, created special artwork for you.
Thank you so
Can you
much.
please, want to see here?
Yeah. I can't wait to open it.
So this piece represents not just you, but the voices you stand for every day. Thank you so much for everything you do. And thank you, Scott, one more time for your time and for sharing such important insights. And to our listeners, if you are facing challenges as work, remember you have rights and support is out there. So this is Beyond the Borders on CKLU 96.7 FM. You stay informed, stay strong, and we'll definitely see you next time. And yeah,
Here we go.
that's small, piece of art. There you go.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. Why, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll talk off here for now. We're going to say bye-bye for now. We'll see you next week with another guest. Take care and have a good night.